The Apartment Gurus podcast is brought to you by Greenlight Equity Group, an apartment acquisitions and holdings firm co-founded by Carl York and Tate Siemer, host of this show. We offer you the opportunity to be an owner of cash-flowing, wealth-growing apartments without the headaches of being a landlord. These assets are recession-resistant, risk-mitigated, offer significant tax advantages, and are a great alternative to the stock market. Ready to check it out? Go to www.investwithgreenlight.com today to book a personal consultation with Carl or Tate. Again, that's investwithgreenlight.com. We look forward to meeting you. Welcome to The Apartment Gurus, where twice a week, host Tate Siemer brings you deep dive interviews with the wisest gurus in the apartment investing industry. These experts are sure to create game-changing value and inspiration designed to catapult your business to the next level. Be sure to reach out to Tate at www.investwithgreenlight.com for access to his investor portal and Calendly link. And now, here is Tate Siemer and the Apartment Gurus.
Welcome everybody back to another episode of the Apartment Gurus. And honestly, it feels like it's been a little bit since I've been with you guys and produced content for you guys. I've been the last 5 weeks I've been in Mexico, was there hosting a mastermind retreat for my coaching clients and my mastermind group. And then I ended up staying for another 4 weeks or so after the retreat was over, which was a lot of fun. And one of the freedoms that I think so many of us cherish in this space, that's a big motivator for us and a big part of our why, is location freedom, right? As far as freedom goes, you've got money freedom, time freedom, location freedom. I'm sure there's a few others that could be thrown in there, but those are kind of the three that everybody talks about. And being a single guy with no kids and a dog, like, location freedom is huge for me. And I love being able to do what I do remotely, which is almost everything in this space other than site visits and market visits and that sort of thing. So, but what that's produced is, I think maybe we've missed a couple of our publishing slots here over the last couple of weeks. So I appreciate your guys' patience and really excited to be back with you and coming back with you one episode a week from here forward, and super excited about it, and super excited today for today's episode. I've got two friends of mine from the Raise Masters Mastermind that I've mentioned many, many times on the show. We've had numerous guests from Raise Masters. And again, this whole network is your net worth concept is so crucial and key in this business. And a big paid mastermind like a Raise Masters, where you've got, in this case, like around 400 high level capital raisers that are up to doing big things, doing big deals. They have, a lot of them have their own funds that they're raising for. Many of them have raised tens, hundreds of millions of dollars in equity for real estate deals in particular. And it's just being a part of Raise Masters this last year for me and for my company has just elevated our network in such a way that we've got way more options and we're way more powerful than we ever were. So, but Jen and Stacy here are just a completely powerful team that I think you guys are going to find really inspiring and informative and everything else. And let's see, I'm going to pull up there we go. So, so Jen and Stacy Conkey, they wrote a great book called Multifamily Freedom Hacking. So check that out. Again, Multifamily Freedom Hacking. We just talked about freedom, and multifamily investing is a great hack into financial freedom and other freedom. But Jen, interestingly, is an NLP master practitioner, which is kind of like right up my alley, especially these days. I've been delving into the world of NLP and actually bringing that to some of my coaching clients. and fascinated by that technology. We may get to talk about that a little bit here. And Stacy is really like a hands-on A to Z kind of investor. She's great at kind of the complex deals and working with investors and basically putting the pieces together to turn, what's a potential deal into a closed deal, right? Which is kind of what this game's all about. They also have developed the #1 multifamily academy for scaling into multifamily, which emphasizes the underestimated power of leveraging joint ventures before diving into larger syndications, which I think is a really prescient topic to talk about, especially these days. So, Jen, Stacy, first of all, you've been super patient with me on my schedule, getting you guys on the show here. I'm super grateful for that. And more importantly, just really, really stoked to have you on the show.
Thank you, Tate. We're excited to be here.
Yeah. So, just kind of to get started, I know you guys through the mastermind and we've got to spend some time together, just most recently in New Orleans at our retreat, I guess in September of 23 here. We're currently recording this in the middle of December of 23. So end of the year. But I think the audience and really me too, I'd love to hear more about kind of your story, both on an individual level and kind of how you guys connected and how your real estate journey has been and kind of how you got to where you are today.
Sure. I'll kick us off. So
Awesome.
I'm Jen Conkey, and I started my investing journey back in 2002. My brother, he lived around the corner and he came over and he said, "Come to the store with me." And I was like, all right, this is prior to kids, obviously. And we were driving around. He kept talking about flipping for profits. And I thought he was high. I didn't know what the heck he was talking about, but I was like, what is this? So we started driving around looking at properties. And like 6 hours later, I was in his kitchen and we were planning our strategy to do this as a business on the side while working our normal jobs. And that's when I got hooked. I was really excited about it. And my first deal was not so exciting, though. It was 7 months of getting all this tile off the floor and scraping the popcorn off the ceiling and swinging the hammer with my dad. And so it was me, my brother, and my dad taking that DIY approach, which I do not recommend. It took 7 months and we turned a $1,500 profit. It was enough to almost make me quit. When I went to go sell that property, someone had mentioned, "Hey, you should probably hold on to this and just rent it out." And I was like, nah, so it wasn't for a couple of years after flipping single family homes before I got into holding the properties for cash flow. And it took me about 12 years of just grinding while working a corporate job. I was making multiple six figures in corporate America, climbing the corporate ladder, was on the wrong wall. 2015, I met Stacy, and she had already been doing real estate for a long time in the apartment world and coaching people on it. So, of course, I was
real quick, when you say doing real estate in the apartment world as an investor, or at what capacity at that point?
Well, she had, as an investor, and she was coaching people one-on-one.
Nice.
So she had already had a coaching business that was one-on-one. Cool. And when we first met, I was really excited because she started talking about investing remotely, which I had been struggling in my own backyard for 12 years and not making very much of a profit living in California. You put a lot of capital up to get very little return considering the ratio of capital you're putting out. And she had really figured out how to do it from, investing in other states. And so I was fascinated, right? I'll let her tell her story a little bit. And then, but from there, I wanted to get in on how can I date you more and figure out how to do this remote investing thing. Yeah. This is cool. Yeah. So it was very pivotal to meet her and learn her way. And then, we got into small apartments and then eventually got into larger apartments with syndication. But she's who I really learned the joint venture structure from first, and then stair stepping into syndication.
Got it. Awesome. Love it. Stacy, you want to add some color to any of that?
Sure. So I'm Stacy Conkey of the Jen and Stacy Conkey. My journey, I think part of the reason I ended up going into remote investing almost immediately was where I started investing in real estate was also in Northern California. And at that time, not only was real estate very expensive, but it was very competitive. It was a very competitive time in the market. And I was having the hardest time just getting started. Like I wanted so badly just to get my first deal. I wanted it so badly, and I just couldn't seem to get there. And I know a lot of people understand that feeling, and it feels like it's never going to happen. And thankfully for me, I ended up coming across a mentor he was Canadian investing in the US, and he didn't go there. He did it remotely. And so I started asking a ton of questions, and that's what kind of led me into the world of, learning how to do it remotely. Like I can live wherever I want, but I can invest in the markets where it actually makes sense and it does have positive cash flow, and the prices are a little bit more reasonable for someone who's just trying to get started. And that's really what opened things up for me. And Jen talks about like, it shifted when she met me. We started doing remote, but it also shifted for me when I met Jen, because we're so different. I'm such a my background is accounting. I'm a CPA. I was working in corporate America as a controller, and I'm debits and credits. I'm super in the weeds.
Sure. Right.
And Jen is like this high level. She sees the macro of everything, and she's an incredible strategist. Well, I lack that skill in a big way. And she's into doing all the detailed stuff. So when we got together, it benefited, Jen, because, I was able to bring my knowledge, but it benefited me as well, because I didn't know how to look at things. My brain doesn't work that way. Yeah. And so when we got together and we put our skills together, it was like, we're unstoppable. Yeah. And it really allowed us to build something really great for ourselves and our family, but then also to be able to pass it along to others who are newer and just getting started, and like they need a leg up. Yeah. They need to not have to struggle the way that we individually struggled on our own journeys. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it safe to say, based on kind of your description of your two different, personalities and like superpowers, that Jen is kind of the like visionary, like big picture kind of person, naturally kind of like falls into that. And then you're more of like a tactician kind of like navigator sort of role, Stacy?
That's the exact way to describe us and how we operate.
I forget.
Yeah.
One of the authors talks about that, the visionary and tactician roles in a partnership. And I want to say it's the EOS guy. I mean, I can't remember where that comes
Entrepreneur
from.
on Fire, EOS. Who's that?
Well, the EOS is the entrepreneur operating system, but
yes.
I'm just spacing the book name right now, but anyway, yeah, I mean, that is a brilliant combination, and my partner and myself, we're a team of two as well. And we definitely have those roles really well defined between us two. And it's a natural fit for both of us. So I can definitely relate to that. So Stacy, just to back up for a sec. So did you start in single family?
So my very first deal did happen to be a single family, but the thing that was kind of funny about that is I was actually looking for a duplex. So my very first deal, because I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I was like, oh, that is so logical to me. Of course, having an accounting background, I like for everything to just be logical and make sense and flow. And I was like, oh yes, you buy something, you have this much rent coming in and this much expenses going out, and you get what's in the middle. And yes, I like that. I want more. And so I was looking for a duplex in Reno, Nevada, which was about 2 hours from where I lived. So I was like, kind of like steers. I didn't know about remote investing quite yet. So I was almost like in the in-between of it. It was technically drivable, but the kind of far away to be driving there. And through me looking for a duplex, I forgot this story because no one's asked me that in such a long time. Yeah. But I ended up finding a realtor who just had a client who was a motivated seller, single family home rental. And he was renting it to his daughter and her boyfriend, and they just kind of destroyed it. And he was just like, I'm just done. I'm done with this. And so I ended up getting a great deal. And so I ended up doing my first deal happened to be a fix and flip on a single family home. But my next several deals after that were residential multifamily, 2 to 4 unit properties. Yeah. So, and I did a little flipping, a little wholesaling, but I've mostly been in the rental space for the majority of the 20 years that I've been investing.
Yeah, I gotcha. So, and did you start out remotely? It sounded like that you started. Did you say you started in Phoenix from California?
No, so it was in Reno, Nevada. So it was about a 2-hour drive from there. And what convinced me, because I was like, I think it'd be so fun to be hands-on. When you're new, everything seems so exciting. And I was so excited. And I was like, well, I don't know how to do like any of the stuff that needs to get done, but the backyard needs to be cleaned up. I could do that. So I was back and I had a little like tape deck and I was listening to my little Robert Allen training on my cassette tape. And I was like, raking the dog poop in the backyard. And after an hour, I was like, I don't really know if this is a great use of my time. I wonder if I should hire someone to do this and go try to find another deal. And that was it didn't take me very long that I was like, I have blisters on my hand and I just don't know if this is a good way for me to spend my time. And back then I could hire someone to do it for like $5 an hour. So it didn't take me too long to move out of doing into, let me hire that out and go look for the next deal.
I did the same thing though. I was over there busting tile. Like, this is right. I never did that again. But I was over it after that. Yeah. It's funny how
you guys smarted up to it a lot faster than I did. Carl and I, my partner and I, we did single family hard and heavy for about 7 years. And I was definitely the one finding deals and selling deals and doing the numbers and, kind of leading from the front. But I had no technical skills at all. And back then we we weren't surrounded by the podcasts and the conferences and part of that was that they weren't quite as pervasive, but they were there and we just didn't for some reason didn't find those and engage. So we were kind of out there on an island and weren't doing things as strategically as we could. And I spent a lot of time breaking dog poop, or the equivalent thereof, because Carl can swing a hammer like no other and he's just an amazing mechanic and technical guy physically on properties, almost it probably didn't serve us well at the end of the day because he could pretty much do everything. And I was basically helping him and we thought that was the smart thing to do. It took us a while to figure out that it wasn't. And once we did, we really shifted gears. And that's when we went small multi and then into larger multis as well. But so I guess, Stacy, just to kind of drill down, how did you it seems like everybody just kind of assumes they have to start with single family, right? So I guess
yeah, they do. It does. Yeah.
Where did you kind of glean that, let's start with duplexes and fourplexes and start in that space? Cause that's for most people, that seems like starting at step 2 or step 3 and not step 1, right?
Yeah. It's interesting, Tate, because I don't actually know where I heard of a duplex. It might've been when I just reached out to because I reached out knowing I was looking for a duplex. It was probably somebody at one of the investor clubs I was going to who must have mentioned it because I don't remember reading that in Kiyosaki's book. I think he was talking about single family rentals. The thing, obviously, fast forward 20 years, obviously, you gain a lot of wisdom over time. Yeah. And because we specialize in working with brand new investors, this conversation is so common for the people that we work with, especially when interest rates were lower. I'm like, look, there's really no difference for a brand new investor starting out. There really is zero difference from any standpoint between a single family home, even up to a fourplex, because everything that's 1 to 4 family is considered residential real estate. Even if it's 2 to 4 units, Jen and I will still call it multifamily because it's technically more than 1 unit, but it's residential multifamily. So from a lending standpoint, from a valuation standpoint, it's identical. And I really think the big differentiator, which is just a mindset shift, that, for those of you who are listening here, you're just trying to get started, there's nothing wrong with a single family home, but let me just give you a little bit of contrast and why you might consider skipping that and just going into small multifamily, because it's, the learning curve is identical, but the benefit is very different. And if you think about it, if you can think about, you have a single family home and you have one tenant, right? One tenant in there paying rent. And oh my gosh, what if that tenant falls on hard times or they get laid off or they get, their spouse leaves them and now they can't pay rent. And what happens when they can't pay rent? Well, the mortgage still has to get paid. The property taxes have to be paid, the insurance, the utilities, everything still has to be paid. Well, how does it get paid if that tenant can't pay? And God forbid they can't pay and they still don't move out. Then it's really hard. So you're coming out of pocket, you're going into your savings, and that can be financially destructive, but also mentally and emotionally for a new investor really hard to get past. So that's the single family home, model. But if you go even just to a duplex, it's just 2 units under one roof. And then you can have a triplex or a quad. So it's either 2 units, 3 units, or 4 units under one roof. Now you're spreading out your risk. Even on a duplex, just 2 units, if one person happens on those same circumstances, you still have rent coming in. And chances are that rent can help you cover the majority of the expenses. You might still be out of pocket, but it's going to be a lot less. And you can get that tenant out, get someone else in there, and you're not taking this massive cash flow loss. So, I like single family rentals we have 3 of them in our portfolio, but it's not because they're great cash flow, because they're not. They, if they can break even over time, we consider that thumbs up. But they're good for building equity. But when you're trying to build cash flow and get things started, single families are just tough because one thing goes wrong and you've wiped out your entire cash flow for a whole year like that. So it's like, if you can first build with, and ideally you can even just skip over those right into
5 units.
Yeah, 5. Yeah. The thing is, people think of apartment investing and they're like, oh, that sounds too big. It sounds too scary. And I felt the same way. And I wish there was someone who would have just told me, look, there's actually a lot more money to be made in apartments, and don't freak out because apartments start at 5 units. So what's really the difference between a 4 unit and a 5 unit? Is it really that scary? Yeah. It's not, but it's just a mindset shift. And so Jen and I have been very vocal about helping people understand that it's okay to start in apartments, and it's okay to start small. There's nothing wrong with starting with something that's between 5 and 10 units to get your feet wet. Because it's like, you'll be astounded at how much you learn. And everything is hard when it's new. Yep. It's not hard to the level that it's undoable. Right. It's totally doable. You just got to shift your mindset from, oh, it's so scary because it's apartments, to, oh, well, let me start small and I'll learn. And then I can go to bigger and bigger and bigger and eventually move into large apartments and syndication when you're ready.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. No, that's a great breakdown, really. I think of the whole proposition between single family, duplex, fourplex, and then even starting to get into the multifamily conversation. And I think we'll talk about that here a little bit further. But Stacy, you were a coach when the two of you met in this space already, right? You were already coaching investors.
Yeah. And a big part of it was just when I started, I had paid $40,000 for my education. I did not want to try to figure it out. So I paid for an education, and the education was just, at the time, everything was new. So I was like, oh my God, it's the most amazing thing ever, until I went to put it into practice. And I was like, wow, they legit left out like 90% of the details. And for a detail oriented and analytical person, like, that was the worst thing they could have done. And so I had a very challenging life for my first couple of years, because everything, even though I paid $40,000 to learn it all, I learned only enough to get me excited enough to get out there and try stuff. And I just became very convicted within my first 6 months. I was very convicted that if I ever freaking figure this out, and I was not even convinced at that point that I would, but I was like, if I ever figure this out, I am going to go back and teach other people, because most people are going to give up. They're not going to keep going. This is way too hard. And I just didn't want people to give up on their dreams or lose money. Yeah. And that just was bored deep into my soul really early on. So within a couple of years, I was going back and I was just teaching whatever I knew that the newer people that were 6 months newer than me, that they didn't know. And over time, that gap widened, where I really knew everything that I needed to know when I was one day old in investing, and was able to start going back and I have a gift for teaching, and I have a passion for teaching. Nice. And those two things have, they just, that's what's fulfilling. Investing is fun. It's cool. And it's good way to make money, yada, yada. But my passion was, doing it, but then helping people come along and not have to have that hard experience that I had, so that they will keep going. They'll still make mistakes. They're going to make their own new set of mistakes, and then they'll learn, and then they can pay it forward to other people. And it just keeps getting things going. But coaching from only a few years in,
Right.
And it's
She
rewarding.
was coaching one-on-one. And when I arrived on the scene, I'd been bumping my head on the wall for 12 years in the 2 to 4 space.
Yep.
And knowing that there's got to be a better way, you know. And so when we finally started dating and I learned about all the things that she knew, the remote strategies, the fact that she was already a coach and doing one-on-one, I had always longed for a sense of community while I was out there bumping my head on the wall for 12 years. Yeah. And I asked her a simple question of, well, it sounds like you're pretty motivated, that your education was really crappy. And it sounds like you want to vindicate that and you're doing a really great job one-on-one. But what if we did it one to many? Like, what if we created a community? And I know there's people out there that felt just like I did, that feel just like you did. And if we bring them all together and now we've got a brain trust, and they have somebody that they can ask a question to, they can bring up a challenge that's been a problem and we can all group solve. Like, what if we did that? Yeah. And that's when she was like, all right. So that's how the academy got launched. And she enrolled our first 3 people and now we're like hundreds. So, and we've touched thousands of lives. And it's like, that's what we really wanted. And I think the fact that she had a really crappy education, at least she invested in one. I didn't. And what the irony is, Tate, is that she invested $40,000 and had the same experience I did, bumping the head on the wall, still figuring it out. Yeah. But it motivated her in a way that we created something to solve that for other people who are out there bumping their head on the wall.
Yeah. And, I mean, that's you got a taste for what didn't work for you as far as the education piece and therefore what would work for you on that side of things and what would work for somebody else in your shoes. And so, I think that's incredibly valuable in a way that $40,000 probably at the end of the day did pay off, but not in the way that you were expecting. Right.
That's correct.
Yeah.
You know what? It gave me the motivation and the excitement to get out there and get going. And that's what started my journey. And clearly, I'm meant to teach. This is obviously what I'm supposed to be doing, but I never would have ended up here had the education been good, because I would have just kept investing and I wouldn't have been like, wow, the education is horrible out there. Like I need to change things. And that really drove me not only just keep investing and learning, but then to figure out how to, like, what was missing and how do I fill in that gap so that people can build wealth and not be sitting there suffering and frustrated and just going back to their 9-to-5 job for the rest of their life.
At the end of the day, you're doing a few things amongst other things. You are like massively shortening the timeline of progression for somebody that's getting into that space. Right. Like, and I have a mastermind and I coach one-on-one as well. I'm kind of doing the hybrid thing right now. My whole approach with these guys is to, I just lost my train of thought. I think it'll come back to me. I think, I know what it was. I was like you. I'm like, I just went through, we were able to acquire about 50 million, I think between 6 or 7 properties in about 18 months in our growth cycle. And this was like 2000, 2001. And that's pretty good, right? Like, it's something that you can kind of, woohoo, like we did it, like kind of thing. And then we kept going, and now we're up to 10 properties and about 800 doors, that sort of thing, and about 80 million in assets under management. But what I found at the point about a year ago was like, okay, we grew fast, and that produced a lot of growing pains and a lot of lessons, right? And a lot of really good cautionary points, if you will, that sharing with other investors would be incredibly valuable. Plus, I don't know if I'm a gifted teacher like you are, Stacy, as much as I am kind of a gifted, like big picture type person where I can kind of see like all the pieces. I can, like if I was a basketball player, I can kind of see the whole floor, right? Or a quarterback, I can kind of see everything happening and put it together in a way that I think is effective and powerful. And, like going back to even when I was a kid, like I was kind of always in this helping counseling role, and I was a psych major in college, and I thought I'd be a therapist. And And, I just really love the one-on-one, in particular, one-on-one coaching it lights me up. I get it's not scalable, and I get that, there's really only so much of it I can do. And I'm very selective about who I work with in that space. But in the mastermind format for me, you guys call it your academy, I think. But that's equally rewarding. And for me, what it's done, and I'd be curious, it sounds like this is similar for you, Stacy, and Jen too. Like, it kind of took, like, when we found the multifamily space, we really just fell into like this groove. And, I joined my own paid coaching mastermind with Corey Peterson at the time. And this was pre-Zoom, like, pre like all the things that we do remotely now. So it was a limited mastermind. Nonetheless, it kind of launched us into what we were doing. And, it basically, we just really fell into like what I felt like was a whole new level of excitement and vision. And like, finally, I was using my skill set at a high level and not like being a janitor on our job sites, essentially. Then I started the podcast 3 years ago, and that was pretty shortly thereafter. And love that and still love it. And still, I just do it because I love it. I was sharing this with you guys, before we got started recording. It's still very much a passion for me. Just mainly because I get to hang out with people like you and talk about cool stuff, and share cool ideas. But adding that coaching piece to this whole thing, took my sense of purpose, like, through the roof, in a way that nothing else had. Like, working with these guys, it almost doesn't really matter what we're working on in a lot of cases, right? Like, we're talking about multifamily investing and getting better and better at that, and doing deals. But a lot of times we're just kind of in the weeds with personal development stuff and limiting beliefs and constraints that are showing up and not serving us well. And so, I'm curious, does that resonate with you guys at all in terms of that kind of that sense of purpose piece?
1,000%, 1,000%. That I feel like my purpose in life is to create breakthroughs and miracles for everyone that crosses my path.
Nice.
So, that's why we incorporated so much mindset into the academy.
Yeah.
Our academy, it's not just, it's wow. It's unreal,
It is unreal.
what we've been able to create, and because we focus on personal development and getting rid of limiting beliefs, and it sets us on fire. It sets our soul on fire for sure.
That's awesome.
And we basically, it's so ingrained in our culture to just, we know that when somebody joins the academy, that first 90 days, they're going to be going through quite a bit of turmoil because there's friction. They already are a subject matter expert in whatever role they're in. And now they're trying to learn multifamily. Yeah. And for us as human beings, we always want to stick with what's familiar. So, we'll go back and revert to what we're really good at already because we forgot what it was like to learn something new. So in the first 90 days, we have an entire support system for every 2 weeks to check in on somebody and make sure, we know that this is your current identity and that's cool. It got you where you are. And you also learned a specific formula on how to become a subject matter expert. You can apply the same thing to learning multifamily and help them bridge that gap and ditch all the limiting beliefs and step into a new identity of an unstoppable multifamily investor. It takes them a while. It takes them about 90 to 120 days to make that full shift. And that's if they're doing the work. But when we see those shifts, that's like, we remind ourselves, that's why we started this.
Yeah.
So because it's 80% mindset in any business, especially in this
100%.
20%.
I think that's almost an understatement, really. Like, but it certainly is at least 80% mindset. There's no doubt in my mind.
It absolutely.
So just curious, during those first 90 days, are they pretty much, are your clients pretty much exclusively working on mindset stuff, or are they doing other peripheral business building type stuff as well?
No, their first 90 days, they're getting into action. It's both. Okay. It's both, and it's not one or the other. Yeah. Stacy has created a remarkable apartment investing course that we have on our online learning platform. And I created a remarkable mindset course that they have access to on the online learning platform. And when they join us, they get a kickstart call with our chief experience officer, go through an entire roadmap of do this week 1, week 2, week 3, all the weeks are laid out for them. They just follow that roadmap. And it includes consuming the coursework that Stacy's created, consuming the coursework that I've created, and really going out there, finding a market, finding and building a team, analyzing deals, making offers, getting into the actual flow of being an investor and what that looks like. So they're doing both for the first 90 days, and we're just checking in on them.
Yeah. And that's kind of like the ramp up process, right? You're kind of like, it's almost like you're juggling a number of different things that are so important and crucial and foundational, really. And the mindset piece is such an important one of those, really. All right. So, we've talked a lot about your academy and your coaching and like all the things that you're able to create and your intentions behind it. I love creating breakthroughs and miracles for everyone that you meet and come across. That's such a beautiful vision. I mean, what more can you offer somebody, really? And so I think that's awesome, Jen. But so I guess, begs the question, like, how can listeners find out more about it, about, the academy and kind of you guys in general, and what's really the best way to connect with you?
The best way is we have curated a playlist of videos where you can kind of go and learn our blueprint. And if you want to book a call, whether you're an active investor or a passive investor, you can do that. But that you can find that playlist at www.warriorsofwealth.com. And the next best place is that we do 4 events a year. It's called WOWCON, the Warriors of Wealth Conference. And we have one coming up February 2nd through the 4th. And then the next one is, I think, the first weekend in May. And then we have another one in August, and we have another one next November. So we've got 4 that are all based in Orlando. So if you wanted to check that out, you can go to wowcon.com.
Yeah. I guess talk a little bit about those. I'm just personally quite interested in maybe trying to get to one of those second half of the year. So what are those like?
Well, it is, it's not your average real estate investing seminar. I'll just be right up front with that. It is a heart-pounding, life-changing, transformational 3-day event. And Day one, the entire event for February specifically is to talk about the strategies to succeed in 2024, given everything that's going on in the market.
Yeah.
The way we design the event is on day one, it's just a list of, it's just powerhouse speakers that are pouring into the soul of the audience. We've got lenders, we've got asset protection, we've got people who are teaching you what to do with your self-directed IRAs. We've got a powerhouse of people that we even have Ron White coming. He's a brain trust person. He teaches you a brain athlete.
Okay. I thought
and he teaches you how to.
I thought you were talking about Ron.
No, the comedian. No, everybody always thinks it's the comedian. I'm gonna have to let him know. No, not Tate or Salad, not him.
I love him.
Ron White. Yeah, I do too. He's a brain athlete. He comes in and he teaches you when you're meeting people and you're going to networking events like ours is it's like a premier networking event, basically. He teaches you when you're first meeting somebody, what to notice about them, how to memorize their name, and how to memorize things about them that are meaningful. And so he's going to be coming in February.
So
he's
powerful.
Really awesome.
Man, that is like, that's powerful stuff. I mean, when you remember somebody's name and something about them the next time you see them and you call them by name, like that just that elevates that connection like nothing else can, in my opinion. That's
totally. Huge. So we get a whole bunch of speakers that come in and just pour in. We do a lot of speed dating, and not with the purposes of hooking up, but we teach there are 3 roles in multifamily investing. You're either an acquisitions manager, a capital raiser, or an asset manager.
Yeah.
And then our process at these events is to help you. It's kind of like at Hogwarts. What's the sorting hat? You figure out, okay, I'm not Gryffindor, am I Slytherin? No, I'm an acquisitions manager. So we sort people in by role based on their experiences, their skill sets, what comes naturally to them. And then once we've done that, we do speed dating so that you can literally build your team while you're there at the event. At the last event, we had two teams that emerged and said, hey, we just formulated our own team. And when you have a team of those 3 roles, you're unstoppable. You can do 2 to 3 deals a year just between that team of 3. So we have a vision of creating what I call our 300. We want 100 acquisition managers, 100 capital raisers, 100 asset managers, and we're constantly recruiting. And those 100 teams of 3 doing 2 deals a year, that's 200 deals a year. That's amazing. We can build skylines together. So at the event, we place people, do speed dating. So now you get to meet people that you gel with that would be good business partners. And we teach you, like, here's what you should probably use to ask the questions and vet and discern who's going to be the best fit for the team. Then what we do from there is we teach them, okay, they go out now, and we create these teamwork sessions where they can go out and do things like whether it's an escape room or a scavenger hunt or something where they have to work together, because you got to survive a 6-hour car ride with somebody to know if you want to do business with them
100%,
or travel with them. One time we took everybody on a cruise and said, hey, we're going on a cruise. If you can travel with one another, you're going to learn a lot about how people face challenges. What do they do? How do they respond when they make a mistake? What's their communication style? Like, you learn so much. So we curate these specific experiences at these events so that you can get to know people. It's not superficial. It's not surface level. We go deep. And then on day 3, we do transformational things, like seriously transformational, where I connect people to their why and I connect people to their true identity of a multifamily investor. And we have them do something that they don't think they can do. And that helps them break through that beliefs. Like, for example, we'll tell them, here's a 40-pound arrow that could kill a grizzly bear. Mm-hmm. And here's a board that represents your vision of what you want. You're going to take this arrow and with your throat, break it on this board so that you step towards what you really want. And when you break this arrow with your throat, you're going to see that anything's possible for you. Yeah. So we do arrow breaks, we do board breaks, we do all kinds of fun stuff on day 3, some meditations, hypnosis to show people that they're actually worthy of all of the success that they're about ready to embark upon. It's a life-changing event, and we do it 4 times a year. It's what we live for.
Yeah, I love it. I can hear the excitement and passion in your voices when you talk about it, and I'm sure you're just making a massive impact on people's lives, and it sounds like you've grown to a place that you're making a massive impact on lots of people's lives, which is super exciting. And I love your approach. It very similar to my philosophy on this, which is a holistic approach. Like, you're only as good an entrepreneur or an apartment investor as you are really at your inner game, right? Like, for lack of a better way of putting it. And if you've got constraints that are holding you up, limiting beliefs, trauma, whatever that is that you need to clear out, or sense of unworthiness, any of that stuff, you're going to just bump up against that over and over again if you're not bringing it out in what I say, the light of consciousness, and kind of like transforming it and integrating it. I think. So I think that's super exciting. I hate this. We're right up against time. I really wanted to ask you guys, like, maybe you could 60-second thumbnail this for me. Totally different subject. What, if anything, in the asset world are you excited about right now and kind of going after as far as acquisitions?
Yeah. All right. And the 60 seconds.
I know it's really fair question.
It's okay, because it's actually really clear for us. As soon as things started shifting, we immediately shifted our strategy as well. We knew it was coming, so we were prepared. But the only asset classes that we will go after, actively for us to operate ourselves, are apartment buildings that are stabilized. Yep. At the time that we're buying them, meaning they're already cash flowing from day one, but they also have upside. There's much fewer of them out there. They're a bit of a unicorn, but that is exactly specifically what we look for. And then anytime we can do seller financing, we are wrapping those in. So those are the 2 things that we are laser focused in, at least for the next several years, as far as what we are actively operating in real estate.
Yeah. And listeners, I'm in total alignment with that. We closed 2 heavy value add deals this year in 2023. and they were ridiculously hard to get done. And for a lot of different reasons, right? The loan product you're going to work with is not nearly as desirable in this climate of high interest rates and volatility. And so, your limited partners are going to be spooked by that. Just having a business plan that doesn't cash flow from day one, and that is dependent on $300 or $400 a month rent deltas in the business plan. Those were the deals that everybody loved 2 years ago, because those were the ones that were cashing in 18 months or 2 years. Right. Now it's almost the opposite. And you need to be able to, I think, do long-term fixed rate debt if when possible, if at all possible. And, for us, a lot of times we're looking actually assuming a loan. I'm sure you guys look for that too. And then, that seller finance piece can really make or break the deal. And sellers are doing that now because they have to get to move their properties. So I'm really glad actually we touched on that, because it kind of affirms where we are and kind of our takeaways from this year and what we're going after now. Class B minimally, right? And not too old at this point, maybe 20 years at the most, but the newer, the better too. So, wow, guys, ladies, thank you so much. This has been just a power session. I feel like we almost just got started in some ways. Your story is so inspiring, and your synergy together, and just the way that you guys play off each other and bring your different skill sets and your different gifts to the table, and you guys have it dialed. I'm sure that there's lots of things, or maybe a few things that you look at and you're like, well, maybe we're not so dialed in this part of our business, but it seems to me in the important aspects of your business, which is really knowing your values, knowing your mission, knowing who you want to impact and how, you guys really have that dialed up. And so congratulations. It's a thrill to be in your circle, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys again, hopefully here in just, I guess, 8 weeks or so at Raise Fest in Phoenix. And I'm just grateful for you being on the show.
Thank you for having us,
Tate.
Yeah, thank you. And I guess just one more time to remind listeners the best way to reach you guys and learn more about what you have to offer.
Yeah, warriorsofwealth.com, or if you're interested in the event, WOWCON.com.
Perfect. Yeah. So warriorsofwealth.com, listeners, and then WOWCON.com, which is in Orlando 4 times a year. So no excuses not to get there, right? So
right.
Awesome. Jen, Stacy, thanks again. Real honor to have you on the show. And listeners, as always, it's an honor to have you on board with this journey and as a listener. And I just hope that we're able to just bring you all kinds of value on an ongoing basis and our contribution to your success and ultimately your a level of happiness and fulfillment in life and fulfillment of your own purpose. So this has been an amazing conversation, and hopefully you got a lot out of it. So with that, thank you, everybody, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.
This has been The Apartment Gurus with Tate Siemer. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. To contact Tate, go to www.investwithgreenlight.com for access to his investor portal and Calendly link. He loves to hear from you and thanks you for being a valued listener. Just a reminder that you are the guru. See you on the next episode of The Apartment Gurus.